Okay, so now because calculus is, likes to call it as pain and suffering, we also have an alternative definition. So an alternative definition for the derivative of f at c is this lovely mess where I've got f prime to c is equal to the limit as x approaches c of f of x minus f of c all over x minus c. So this is the whole idea that as my x particular point gets closer and closer and closer to c, that it's going to be more and more accurate. All right, so again, secant line is going to pass through 2 points, just like my tangent line did. Surprise, secant and tangent lines are basically the same thing. So it's going to pass through 2 points, which the slope between 2 points is just the change in y over change in x, otherwise known as the slope. So if I have the change in y, that's just going to turn out to be f of x minus f of c all over x minus c. All right. So now I get to try to use this alternative definition for this fun little derivative of f of x is equal to 1 over the square root of x. All right, so that was just the slope. So trying to find the slope again, I'm going to have, oh my geez, stop grabbing the page. All right, so I've got f primed of c is going to equal the limit as x goes to c of f of x minus f of c all over x minus c. Alright, so this is going to equal the limit as x approaches c of 1 over the square root of x minus 1 over the square root of c all over x minus c. Alright, so then I'm going to have a fun time. I'm actually going to copy out flip this right now just to make my life a little bit easier. I am going to say the limit as x goes to c of 1 over the square root of x minus 1 over square root of c times 1 over x minus c. Alright, so now we get to have the fun time of trying to get a common denominator with square roots. So, and I only need 2 in one little piece, so it's not as bad as it seems. So I need to multiply this piece by square root of c over the square root of c. And I need to multiply this piece by square root of x over the square root of x. Alright, so still seems terrible, but honestly, not too bad because I'll get a common denominator, which means that this whole thing is just going to be over the square root of x times c, because square roots, I can keep the square root and multiply what's underneath. And then I'm just going to have the square root of c minus the square root of x up top. And then that's still going to be times 1 over x minus c, which again still seems bad. I'm not going to lie, it's probably not my favorite problem, but you know, it is what it is. Alright, so then I've got these magical square roots that I really would rather just not have. So in order to get rid of those up top, I am going to actually multiply by the complex conjugate. But first, I think I want to try to clean this up a little bit further. So 1 times anything is just going to be this anything. So I am just going to rewrite this as x minus c. Because this times that is not going to turn out pretty. So just leave it as it is. Alright, so now I'm going to multiply by that complex conjugate to make our lives a little bit easier. So I'm going to multiply that by c plus x, both of those underneath the square root. And then I'm going to multiply this one by square root of c plus the square root of x. Alright. So up top, that's going to make my limit just be x approaches c of c now minus x, because I made that a difference of squares. And then the denominator is still going to be freaking disgusting. Alright. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, my limit is approaching C, right? Hold on. Can I erase? I feel like I can. Alright, hold on a second. Before I even start plugging in C for a second. So I've got limit as x approaches C. So what I was noticing is that this particular bit and this particular bit are almost the same beside the sign changes. So if I really wanted to, I can actually make that bit the same by pulling out a -1. So I'm going to have -1 times, now -c plus x over this grossness, which is going to be the square root of x. Sorry, that was my cats. Square root of c plus square root of x. So now I see that, hey, my top and bottom factors both cancel. They go away. Cool, cool. So all that I'm left with is the limit as x approaches c of -1 over square root of x c times the square root of c plus square root of x. Alright, but my x is going to c, so anywhere that I see an x, I'm going to plug in a c. That's nice. So ultimately, I get the -1. I'm going to change colors real fast. -1 over square root of now c times c times square root of c plus the square root of c. I see a lot of c's, which this is going to change to -1 over the square root of c squared times 2 square roots of c. Alright, so ultimately I'm going to end up with -1, and then I'm going to have c, because the square root and squares cancel out, hopefully we know that at this point, times 2 square root of c. And with that, we're done. So call it a day, and